our next video with the RT PAT Phase 1 document. So those of you doing RT at school, you know you need to do a practical assessment task. These are some tips and ideas. And we are going to do another little bit about the Phase 1 document. So we've started it in our previous video. You can go click on the link for that. And then this one, we're going to talk about how we can get the next part of the document, which is the data structures and the user interface. Now, in our previous video, we did the first little bits, the scope, the user requirements, and the navigation flow. And then you need to design your database. This is obviously going to be very important so that you understand what your screen is going to look like, because you need to know what data you're going to put in your database. So go look at what you want to do for your database. We do have a video that gives you ideas on planning on what you want to do for your database and how to create it. The link is above there, so just go click on that link. So I'm going to assume that you've gone and done that already. So once you've done your database, then you can continue with this video. And I'm going to jump now. I know it says the graphical user interface. We're going to do that later. I'm going to jump down to the data dictionary. And the reason for that is because in the rubric, the next thing is the data structures, which is our data dictionary. And there are these little parts over here. So we want to talk about the database, the text files, the classes and objects, and the other data structures, which is probably going to be our arrays. So what I've done is I've gone ahead and I've made a little page break so that we can go into a new page. Obviously, this might take multiple pages. For those of you who don't know what we did here, this is from our previous video. So I've made data structures, and there are my 4 data structures. I'm actually going to make this, if you remember correctly from the previous video, I'm going to make that a heading 1, and these I'll make heading 2s later. But let's just talk about the database. So let's go back over here. So our database, we must have a database. We must explain how the database can be used in our application so that it adds value to the application. So that's what we want to do. And at the rubric, they talk about all the fields are relevant, or the data sizes are appropriately done, it's rational and normalized. Remember, if you are a matric, you need to have at least 2 tables. They need to be connected to each other. There needs to be a relational database. In other words, there must be a relation between. You could have more. Don't go too overboard with the tables. If you look in our database video, it'll give you more details there. But make sure that you've got a nice little database with 2 tables and all the data in it. So in our document, we want to, I normally tell my students to put the database in the Phase 1 folder, so you've got a copy of it. Also, because if something goes wrong in the Phase 2, at least you've got a backup. So I would do that. But over here, we need to obviously describe. So you need to give the reason or how the database is going to be used. So basically how the database is going to be used. So I'm just writing that there so that you guys can know you must answer that question. How the database, I don't know why. So, and I'm going to make that a heading 2. So you can obviously change your heading 2. So I'm going to modify that. I don't like the way that looks. I'm going to make it bold. I'm going to make it Arial black and make it a little bit bigger. Just a little bit bigger. There we go. So there we go. I prefer that as, maybe let's give it a different color. Let's give it a different color. We want it to be completely darker. Okay, so there you go. Okay, so it's slightly different. Okay, so you can explain how the database is going to be used. So make sure you describe exactly the user going to be able to check the database to see if the user's got the right login details. I'm going to be able to go fetch my data whenever the user logs on so that I can edit it if I need to, or if the administrator can delete records. It's going to go and show me all the courses. So that's going to go to the database and fetch all the courses that are on display. So describe exactly what you're going to be doing. You can also include here, especially if you're not going to put your database in the same folder as your Phase 1, but you can do this as well. I want you just to give the user the exact details about this database table. So I'm going to create a 4-column table, and the first column is, I'm just going to make it very small. It's going to be like an extra little thing there. And then I'm going to have these little 2 parts here, which are going to be slightly smaller. Okay, so there we go. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put down, this is going to be the field name. So you can describe what your database, this is one table. So at the top here, we must put table names. This is one of your tables. And this is where we put the field names. This is where we're going to put the data type. Okay, so if it's short text or long text or integer or real. And then over here, we can put the field size. So we can say it's going to be a maximum field size of 50, for example. So if we want a surname as a field, then you would want data type would be text or short text, and the maximum field size of that. And then you could have maybe username So username would also be text. We would limit that to obviously, I don't know, username is maybe 25, and we want password, and that would also be text. But you get the idea. You could have numbers and stuff like that. So make that also, let's make it 30, I don't know if you want. And then I want my username to be my primary key. So that's what this column's for. I'm going to put a PK there for primary key, and then I'll put an FK, for those of you who don't know, for the foreign key. That's the link to the table, the other table, whatever the link is. If you've put a primary key field from one table in another table, so that there's a link, that would obviously be the primary key field. So something like along those lines, and you can make that nice little headings like that. So there we go. So you can fill that in for your different tables. And obviously you're going to have more than one table, so you're going to have to copy that, and we're going to have to paste this, and this will be your other table, and obviously you're going to have to put the details in for that one and have its own primary key and stuff like that. So this is a nice little example of what you could do, but make sure you explain the details, and then you can do this, and make sure that you put PK and FK for the fields that are appropriate for the primary key and for the foreign key. You can maybe describe the relationship description. So you can say that's a one-to-many, or you can say that the primary key of the username field is linked to the foreign key, which is in the other table, and so on. Just so that you've got enough information to whoever's marking it that you've done all the requirements. Because remember, you need to make sure that you meet all these requirements. If I go to the rubric, it's all relevant. The field sizes are all great. Then it's normalized. It's a relational database, and it's normalized. So make sure that you follow those particular ones. Okay, so that's the database done. Obviously, once you've done it, and then over here we want text files. So what do we want to do for text files, or what do they want exactly for text files? So obviously, you need some sort of text file in your application for input and or output. Explain where the text file is being used. We've got videos that give you some examples of how you could use text files. As for example, maybe you want to use it as a log to keep track of what the user did during their session on the program. You can use it to get just general details into components like combo boxes. So we have videos for that. So go look at that in our playlist. But when it comes to the phase 1 document, when we go to the data, they talk about text files and advanced. It's combined here. Sometimes they split it up in other here, so make sure that you follow your rubric for your year. But what I like to do here is, again, explain how the text file is going to be used. In the program. So you explain that. And then what I would do particularly is to actually go take a screenshot of the text file. Especially if you've got one, just so that you can see exactly what it's going to look like. So you can go design like a mock text file just to see what the data is going to be like. If it's going to read the data, that's what it's going to look like. Or if you're going to generate a text file, what you want it to look like. So you can create a mock text file, and you can add that to your phase 1 document as well, but then take a screenshot of that particular text file. So I went and quickly made a little text file. Obviously, if you've got comma separated data in your text file, you can just give an example of what it is, fill it out with some sample data of what you think your text file is going, or what you want it to look like in the program. And then you can press Windows Shift S, and this little thing will pop up where you can actually take a screenshot of something. So there it is, it pops up. So we're going to drag our mouse over the text file. And now that I've got it, I can come here to the screenshot, and I can go and paste this image. So now I have an image of my text file. So there we go. So that's what I would do. So make sure you explain how the text file is going to be used. Be descriptive, be exact with what you want it to do, or how you want it to be generated, and then give a screenshot of it. So that's what I would do with text files. So let's go and make that a nice heading 1, because that's a heading. No, that's a heading 2. Sorry, that's a heading 2. So there we go. So that's how the text file is going to be used. Okay. Now the next part is the class and classes and objects. So if you're in grade 12, you obviously need to create your own object. Again, we've got videos that can give you some ideas of how you could use that. A nice idea would be to take data from your database and put it into an object that you can use to manipulate stuff. That would be probably the easiest way, but we have videos for that can help you in our playlists. It must contain at least one object class, and you explain how the objects can be used in your application. So what we want to do, if we look at the details, they want us to describe the attributes, the methods, what the type is, what it returns, the parameters, and the scope of the methods. Okay, so if they're private or public, you can do that type of thing. So let's have a little detail here. So what we're going to do, so first of all, what do class diagrams look like? So I'm going to go, and I've got a diagram over here. I went and searched for class diagrams. You can get some ideas of class diagrams all on the internet by images. I just went and looked at that one a little bit bigger. So basically it looks something like this. So there we can see it, go in a bit more. We're looking at just one of these. It's not going to be as convoluted as this. Obviously, we've got a very simple program. You need at least one class. So just one of these blocks will be fine. So you need to have obviously your customer, and these will be your attributes, and these will be your methods. Okay, so there we go. So that's what we're going to do there. And you'll see the little plus signs next to it. The plus sign, by the way, the plus sign means that it's a public field or attribute, and the minus means that it's a private. So we could incorporate that into our class diagram. So let's go do that. So we're going to go have a look over here, and in our class diagrams you can obviously describe how the class is going to be used. Again, describe how it's going to be used, and then we want to have our class diagram. So I'm going to insert a table. I'm actually going to do a heading. I'm going to do a 1x5. Did I do 1x5? There we go. It's obviously on a new page. So I'm going to come here and insert a page break so that we've got this on a new page. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say this is your class description, or class name, whatever you want to call it. So class name. So you might have like something like CLS user. So that's a particular class, or T user. Sorry, T user would be better. T user. So that's our T user. And then you're going to write down your attributes. And in the next column here, you're going to write down your methods. Okay. And so this will obviously be a bit bigger. So what I would do, so why did I say methods? Spelled right, Mr. Long. Okay. So what I'm going to do here is you would write down your attributes. So you could say, well, we want to keep them private. So I'm going to put minus, and we're going to say this is so we want first name. So do it exactly like you would do in your actual patch. If surname, if age, for example, and if grade. I don't know, if grade. I don't know what you want in your class, but so there you can see that they're all negatives. And then in the methods, we would say, okay, plus, and we're going to say constructor, constructor create. So almost like the declarations that you would do, and then you would give the parameters that you would want to give. So you might give, like, for example, S name of type string, almost so exactly like you would declare them, S string, and stuff like that. So you can do whatever you want for those particular classes. Maybe you've got a function, so we want a plus function get, or maybe we don't want F age, we want F birth date. And it's probably a good idea to put here what these are, string. So that's a string. If surname, that would also be a string. Birth date, you can make it a string, or you can make it a T date if you want. And grade, we're going to make that an integer. Obviously you could use tabs, probably better there, but you could do something along those lines. And maybe you want to get age function, which takes no parameters, but it returns a integer. And what I like to do is somewhere on the side here, maybe underneath it or next to it, say it returns just a description of what that's going to do. Returns the age based on the birth date. Okay, so something like that. So I would do that, and then you could say plus a procedure called set surname. And that's going to take in a parameter of S value of type string. So again, once you've done your actual class, you can actually just take the top little bit of your class where you declare the attributes and the methods and put that in. Just make sure you use pluses and minuses. That's a good idea. Maybe at the bottom, just because you don't use marking them, maybe they don't understand the plus and minuses, you can say minus equals private, plus equals public. And in that way, you've got a nice little key, and they can see that. So let's do that rather private, and then we can go like that. So there we go. So they can see what that means. So there we go. So minus equals private, then that equals public. So there we go. I don't want it to be a undo. Just leave it like that. There we go. So just make a nice little thing like that. There we go. That's a bit better. So you can indicate that's your scope. So if we look at our rubric, just to make sure we've got everything, have we set the attributes? Yes. Have we given the methods, their type, what they're returning, their parameters? Clearly, it's clearly defined. We've included, illustrates the appropriate design and the scope of the methods. I think we've done that, and that way we get all the marks. Obviously, you can make it look a little bit better by using your formatting skills like bold and like highlighting certain things. You can do that if you want, like that bold and italics, that type of thing, but you can go ahead and do those type of things. So that's a nice little example of what you can do for your classes and objects. And then the last little bit is the array. So let's go look at what we want for arrays. Obviously, you read the instructions. You need at least a one-dimensional array or a two-dimensional array or an array of objects. So something like that. Your application must use this. And in the rubric, they want excellent description of the use of the text file and a good application of the array. So we want to describe how we are going to use the array. So again, over here, we want to say, how is the array going to be used? So you will answer that question. Please don't leave this in your patch. That's a heading 2. Please don't leave this in your patch. You answer it and then remove the question. And then what I like to do, once I've describe fully exactly how you can use it, I like to actually give an example of array data. And then I go and I put in a little table, like something like this. So you did something along those lines, and maybe you got lots of data. So you can say this is field 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you can go like dot 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 until, and however many elements in your array. So let's go up until 1,000, or maybe you go until a value called n. It's up to you. And then over here you can give an example of maybe you want an array of surnames. So you can say Smith, Doe, and you would fill that in and so on. So you could do something along those lines, and then again make it look nice and pretty. You can use one of the designs that are already there to make your life a bit easier, something along those lines. If you want, let's do that. And then you got a nice looking little array diagram. Okay, so that you can do if you want to do that type of thing. I like to center that. Where's center? There. So I would do something like that. So there we go. You got a nice little description of the arrays and how they work. The next bit is the design of the graphical user interface. This is to design your screen. So make sure that you read all these details. You want to make use of good HCR. So there are lots of ways of doing it. You could draw it on paper. You could draw it using like shapes in Word. My suggestion is to design them in Delphi, because you can design them quite quickly in Delphi. And the positive thing about designing them in Delphi is that once you've finished your phase 1, you've already technically started your phase 2. You've already got the structure there ready to start implementing. It'll save you time with your phase 2. So I would design them in Delphi. You're not writing code yet. Just design the screens, put the components on, change their names, and make sure that you follow these principles. Okay, make sure that the type of the user, that you understand who the user is of that screen, that everything's clear, that you've got nice dialogues or information, using nice icons, that the color is appropriate. So for example, like you want to use good appropriate colors. For example, if you got something that you want to do, you would use more green color for that. And if you want to stop something, you would use more red. You wouldn't use those colors the other way around, because there's association of colors. Like red normally means to stop or warning, green means to go. And so use good color association. Give feedback that's clear and present, helpful error messages. So maybe you can show some what the error messages might look like, which we'll talk about later actually with the RPO table. Say how you can close the screen, any shortcuts. So use these as part of your understanding of what you want. Good space. Make sure everything's nicely aligned, and you need to provide and capture. So they need to capture the data that's going to go into your databases. So you want to have these nice screenshots. And so they talk about introduction screens, all of that. So let's go look at the rubric. It's one little section here. It must fit the design as appropriate components, ease of flow, clearly marked, and a friendly dialogue. So I would have as many screens as you can, that you show all the details. So particularly your big screens, that your screen to log on, your screen to register, your screen where you see your profile. So design those screens in Delphi, and I showed you how to make a screenshot. You go Windows Shift S, and that will give you a option to take a screenshot of your screen, and then you can post them into your document. So we go insert a break here. Have we got enough space? Maybe. Oh, I forgot to change that. I must change that to a heading 2 as well. There we go, heading 2. And so over here, this is a brand new section. So we're going to do your graphical user interface. And you would then say screen 1 and what it is. Screen 1. This is the login screen. And then you can go and paste it here. Paste your screen here. And then you got screen 2. As many screens as you can. Obviously, if there's a screen that does nothing, then don't stress too much about it. But do as many screens as you can that are going to describe what you want to do and so on. So there we go. So you can do stuff like that. And that's a new section, which is a heading 1. And there we go, graphical user interface. Again, while we're doing these heading 1s, because now I can go to the top to my lovely little contents. And if I right click on it, I'll go up, click away, right click on it. We want to update the field, and you want to update not just the, you want to update the entire table. And you'll see now we've added all our lovely little data structures and graphical user interface onto it. So there we go. So that's what I would suggest that you do for your screens. Go put them in, and then you can start designing them. Okay. So go ahead and go design your screens. Do your friends also need help with the PAT? Well, share this video with them. Click on that subscribe button, leave a like, leave a comment. We'd love to hear from you. Go to the playlist for more IT PAT tips. And remember, don't do it the long way. Do it the Mr. Long way.